So what if I told you that the most successful people in your industry, the ones you probably assume just possess this endless superhuman drive, are actually, well, just as lazy as you are?
Yeah, it's a wild thought.
Right. Today, we're completely dismantling that myth of motivation. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is decoding a really concise, but man, incredibly dense piece of writing titled Successful People Build Systems, Not Just Goals.
And if you spend any time at all in productivity circles or you're just focused on personal growth, you've definitely heard the phrase systems over goals thrown around.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost become this corporate buzzword at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's everywhere. But today we're trying to push past that like bumper sticker version of the phrase. We really want to examine the actual psychological anatomy of a system.
Right, and why relying on your ambition is, frankly, practically a guaranteed recipe for failure.
It really is. I mean, it's a profound shift in how we view achievement. We are so conditioned by hustle culture, I guess, to just worship the visionary goal.
We're taught to fixate on the podium or, the big launch day.
Right, or that massive revenue target. But this text, it forces us to look away from the podium and actually examine the practice room.
Yeah.
It forces us to put those big goals under a microscope and ask, well, what actually happens on a random rainy Tuesday? When that initial excitement of setting the goal has completely evaporated.
And the author establishes this very comforting baseline right out of the gate to address that exact Tuesday morning feeling.
It's so relatable.
It really is. The text points out that highly successful people feel lazy. Their motivation fluctuates wildly, just like ours.
They experience the exact same fatigue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The same professional burnout, the same desire to just, pull the covers over their heads as anyone else.
Yeah.
There's no secret genetic mutation for relentless drive here.
And dismantling that toxic myth, the myth of endless motivation, it removes the ultimate excuse, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. We tell ourselves, I just don't have the discipline they do, or I'm naturally a procrastinator, so I just can't reach that level.
Right. But when you accept the premise that the top performers in literally any field also wake up lacking motivation, it completely shifts the paradigm.
Yeah, it proves that greatness does not require some superhuman well of willpower.
Which immediately leaves us with this massive gap in how we understand achievement.
I mean, if we accept that top performers experience the exact same laziness we do, and if motivation isn't the thing pushing them across the finish line, what is the actual differentiator?
Well, the author argues it's the system, and the text provides a very specific operational definition for that.
Right.
Systems are simply habits that are done, quote, without much resistance.
Without much resistance. That phrase is just key.
It's the neurological core of this entire philosophy. A true system is engineered specifically to bypass the emotional hurdle of needing to, actually want to do something.
Let's dig into the mechanics of that for a second.
Yeah.
Why is bypassing the want so critical? Like, why can't we just try harder to want it?
Because motivation is highly volatile. It's a finite resource. Psychologically speaking, when you rely on willpower to execute a task, you're heavily taxing your prefrontal cortex.
The decision-making center.
Exactly. It's the part of the brain responsible for complex decision-making, impulse control, long-term planning, and it burns a massive amount of metabolic energy.
Wow.
By the time you reach the end of the day, or honestly, even just after navigating a few stressful emails in the morning, that energy is depleted.
You hit decision fatigue.
Yes. A system, on the other hand, offloads that cognitive work to the basal ganglia. That's the primitive part of the brain that handles automatic behaviors and habit loops.
So it's kind of like setting up a massive domino run.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, setting a goal is basically akin to standing at the end of a long table, staring at the final domino and trying to knock it over using sheer mental willpower.
Just hoping you have the energy.
Right, hoping your motivation can stretch all the way across the distance. But building a system is doing the heavy, high-friction work up front.
Yes, exactly.
You spend your energy spacing out all the dominoes perfectly, aligning the angles, clearing the table.
So that once the path of least resistance is set up,
The daily execution just requires flicking the very first domino. You don't need to push every single block. Physics just kind of takes over.
the physics of the domino run, that captures the mechanism perfectly because you're front-loading the cognitive effort.
Right.
The system dictates that you no longer have to wake up and decide whether to work or how to work or when to work.
The environment just pulls you in.
Exactly. The structural routine pulls you into the task. Flicking that first domino requires almost zero energy from your prefrontal cortex.
Wait, let me challenge this premise for a second, though.
Sure, go for it.
Because if we're just blindly flicking dominoes without looking at the end of the table, aren't we risking just, like, aimless repetition?
That's a fair question.
And furthermore, where's the line between a granular goal and a system? If a system is just doing a small thing with low resistance, isn't that essentially just a micro goal?
Like what?
Like if my routine is write for 10 minutes today, isn't that just a smaller goal?
Okay, so a goal, even a highly granular micro goal, inherently requires a decision to pursue an outcome.
Okay.
You still have to wake up, evaluate your energy levels, and consciously say, I am going to achieve this 10-minute writing session today.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
That requires a spark of motivation. It requires a choice. A system removes the choice entirely.
It's automatic.
Yes, it's a structural environmental trigger. Like when X happens, I do Y. The text doesn't dismiss the concept of having a destination, by the way. It explicitly mentions systems propelling you to greatness.
Right.
But it insists the goal is merely the compass.
So the goal just tells you which direction north is.
Yes, you absolutely need the compass to orient yourself. You need the visionary goal to decide which dominoes to set up in the first place, right?
Right.
But you cannot traverse a wilderness simply by staring at a compass. The system is the engine.
The engine.
Yeah. The system is the physical act of putting one foot in front of the other day after day, triggered by routine rather than a desire. The compass provides the direction, but the engine does the heavy lifting.
The compass and the engine. That clarifies the relationship beautifully, actually.
It really separates the two concepts.
It does. The goal tells you where you're going, but the system is the actual vehicle. And the author grounds this theory in very recognizable, frankly kind of unglamorous professions to show what this engine looks like in reality.
Oh, the examples are great.
Yeah, we get the writer who sits down daily to write, the athlete who trains every day, the speaker practicing in front of a mirror, the footballer running drills.
Notice the deliberate repetition in the text itself.
Oh yeah, daily, every day.
It highlights the mundane, unsexy nature of actual progress.
It's pure, unadulterated repetition. But let's look at the anatomy of that repetition for a second. Physical repetition makes complete sense for an athlete, right? Building muscle memory, or a footballer running passing drills.
Sure, grinding out the same movement until you can do it in your sleep.
Exactly. It's a clear system for offloading cognitive load. But what about a high-stakes, knowledge-based profession, where you aren't just doing the exact same physical movement over and over?
How does it work, then?
Right. How does a frictionless system work when the environment is highly unpredictable?
Well, the author introduces a brilliant variation to address exactly that scenario.
The surgeon.
Yes. The final example presented is the surgeon who follows a checklist before making the first incision.
Now, a checklist is fundamentally different from a footballer running a physical drill.
Because a surgeon isn't using a checklist to build muscle memory for how to hold a scalpel. They already possess the mechanical skills.
Right.
In this context, the checklist is a structural habit. It is a system designed to eliminate dangerous variables and prevent catastrophic failure.
Just think about the absolute chaos of an operating room.
High stakes, immense pressure.
Life-or-death outcomes, yeah. The surgeon might have been on call for 12 hours.
No.
Their prefrontal cortex is completely exhausted.
Completely depleted.
If they rely purely on their memory and motivation to ensure every piece of equipment is sterilized, every allergy is noted, every baseline vital sign is checked, they are inviting human error into the room.
And the checklist externalizes that cognitive load.
That's a great way to put it.
It removes the ego of thinking, I'm a top-tier surgeon, I don't need reminders. The paper does the remembering for them.
Wow, yeah.
By running through a standardized physical checklist before every single surgery, they automate a high-stakes process. They ensure the critical foundational steps are handled without much resistance, regardless of how fatigued or unmotivated they feel internally.
So a system can essentially act as a safety net for human fallibility.
Exactly.
The athlete uses a daily system to build a capacity, while the surgeon uses a structural system to protect their capacity from their own human error.
That's a really good distinction.
It broadens our understanding immensely. A system isn't just, a morning routine or doing push-ups. It can be a mental framework, a literal piece of paper with checkboxes on a clipboard, or, a specific software blocker installed in your computer.
It's any structure engineered to reduce the friction of doing the right thing, or conversely, to increase the friction of doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And the text lays out a very clear, almost mathematical cause and effect relationship for where these low-resistance habits ultimately lead. The quote is, "Habits lead to mastery of your craft."
The word mastery, it carries a very different psychological weight than the word success.
It really does.
It feels distinct from just achieving a goal.
Well, the author deliberately avoids saying goals lead to mastery.
Ah,
A goal is a binary destination. You either hit your quarterly sales target or you don't. You either run the marathon or you don't.
yeah, pass or fail.
And the psychological danger of goal obsession is that you exist in a state of continuous failure until the very moment you hit the goal.
That sounds miserable.
It is. And once you hit it, the satisfaction is so fleeting, and then you just have to set a new goal.
Right.
Mastery, however, is an ongoing state of being. It's not a finish line you cross where someone hands you a medal and you can finally just stop practicing.
So if your goal is to write a best-selling book, that's a destination. But mastery is the ability to write consistently compelling prose.
Exactly.
And that mastery only comes from the daily, low-friction system of sitting in the chair at 8 a.m., regardless of whether inspiration strikes.
When you implement a system that operates without resistance, you guarantee continuous execution. Every single time you run the system, you are successful.
You win the day just by flicking the first domino.
Yes, if you execute continuously, your improvement compounds over time. Mastery is just the inevitable mathematical result of time multiplied by a frictionless system.
I love that. Time multiplied by a frictionless system. And if you're listening to this right now and mentally cataloging your own massive ambitions, the text leaves you with a very direct, urgent push to rethink your approach today.
Not tomorrow.
No, not on January 1st as some New Year's resolution. The beauty of this framework is that the barrier to entry is entirely within your control.
Completely.
You're not trying to summon the willpower to move a mountain. You're just engineering a system of low resistance to move a tiny pebble every day.
And the first practical step is conducting an audit of your own friction points.
How so?
Well, ask yourself, where are you currently staring at the compass instead of building an engine?
Ooh, that's good.
Where are you relying on the fleeting, volatile emotion of motivation to get your work done?
Let's apply this to a real scenario for the listener. Say you're prepping for a massive presentation due on Friday,
Okay.
and you're just hoping to wake up on Thursday feeling inspired enough to build the entire slide deck.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Okay.
You're relying on a massive, highly unlikely spike of willpower.
Instead, you engineer a system to bypass the need for inspiration.
Right.
Maybe your system is that every day at 10 a.m., you close out of your email, you put your phone in another room, and you open the presentation software for exactly 20 minutes.
That's it.
That's it. You don't even have to create a good slide. You just have to sit with the software open.
Wow.
You're removing the massive friction of the overwhelming goal, finished the presentation, and replacing it with a low-resistance habit. Open the app at 10 a.m. The environment triggers the behavior.
Or take a personal growth example. Say your goal is to read 50 books this year.
A classic goal.
Right. If you only read when you magically feel energized on a Sunday afternoon,
Yep.
life will inevitably get in the way.
Always does.
So you need to offload the decision-making process. Put the book directly on your pillow when you make your bed in the morning.
Oh, I like that.
When you go to sleep at night, you physically have to pick the book up to get into bed. You've removed the hurdle of choosing to walk over to the bookshelf. You've aligned the path of least resistance.
And if you're in a high-stakes knowledge worker role where details are critical, and you keep making small preventable errors because you're rushed or mentally depleted, you don't need a goal to, quote-unquote, be more careful.
Right. Being more careful is not a system.
No, it requires ongoing, exhausting mental vigilance. You need the surgeon's checklist.
Like creating a literal Post-it note on your monitor with 3 specific boxes to check before you hit send on any major client deliverable.
Exactly.
Are the attachments there? Is the tone correct?
Yeah.
Are the numbers accurate? You don't rely on your tired, end-of-the-day brain to remember to check those things.
The Post-it note does the remembering.
Yeah. You reclaim your agency by accepting your human limitations and engineering a structural path right around them.
You're basically building an environment where doing the right thing happens automatically, and doing the wrong thing requires effort. That is the essence of a system.
Let's pull all these threads together to fully synthesize this text. We started by dismantling the pervasive myth of the endlessly driven superhuman achiever. We acknowledge the comforting reality that we are all prone to laziness, decision fatigue, and fluctuating motivation. The true differentiator between success and stagnation is the system a routine or structure engineered to bypass the prefrontal cortex and operate with minimal resistance.
And we saw how this mechanism functions across entirely different arenas. We looked at the unsexy daily repetition that builds an athlete's muscle memory, which acts as the engine driving them forward.
Yeah.
But we also examined the crucial utility of the structural checklist, which protects a surgeon's process from human error when the stakes are high and cognitive load is maxed out.
And finally, we established that the compounding mathematical result of those friction-free systems over time is true mastery. You don't need to fundamentally change your entire personality to achieve long-term success.
No, not at all.
You don't need to go on a retreat to find some hidden well of relentless motivation. You already have everything you need. You just need to look at your daily routines, stop staring at the final domino at the end of the table, and figure out how to make flicking the first one an automatic, effortless reflex.
You know, before we wrap up, there is an interesting corollary to this entire philosophy to consider.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we've clearly defined a successful system as a habit done without much resistance. We want the execution to be as automatic as possible.
Right.
But what happens when your craft inevitably evolves? To achieve true, continuous mastery over a lifetime, will you eventually have to recognize when a system has become too comfortable?
Oh, wow.
Will you have to purposefully break your own frictionless engine and endure the heavy, high-friction work of building a completely new one to reach the next level of your potential?
That is a phenomenal question to chew on as you evaluate your own routines and ambitions this week. Are your systems propelling you forward, or have they just made you comfortable staying in place? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Go out there, audit your friction points, and start building your engine today. Catch you next time.